On to buckets. There we go. Brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. This is your Monday weekend recap, and quite a few more days, as well as Futures Look and Monday Best Bets episode. Joining me as always on the Monday Best Bets is the Future Jays. We've got Joe Delara. You can find him on Twitter and in the Action Network app at Joe Delara. He will not be going as Joe DeLatter. That is not a thing that he will approve, despite our producer's well-intentioned suggestions of nickname. Also joining me is Jim Turvey. You can find Jim on Twitter and the Action Network app at TurveyBets. Want to make a special shout out of the podcast with Joe and often Jim, the Cash That podcast. Make sure to check that out as well. Check out the Cash That podcast. If you listen to this, you're going to want to listen to that. Like, it's betting. It's betting, and there's a lot of basketball. Go do it. You also get to hear Brandon shit on pretty much every contract that's ever handed out, because he doesn't think that anyone that isn't Steph Curry is worth anything. So make sure to check that out as well. All right, on today's show, we'll get into best bets. We will then talk about the in-season tournament. Final day of the tournament, group games, is on Tuesday. We are going to do our level best to try and not only give you best bets for how you should bet this thing from a futures perspective, but we're also going to try and simplify this thing. And let me tell you, that's not an easy task. We're going to try and simplify it down so you understand motivations, all angles, etc., for the in-season tournament play on Tuesday. Everything that we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. If you haven't gotten it yet, and if you've just been like listening, you're like, I like the podcast, but I don't really need the app. If you download the app and you don't find anything of value, I will send you nothing because I don't have a lot to give you. But what I will do is I will tweet anything in favor of whatever team that you like at all. If you really do download the app, you gotta be honest with you. This is honest. I will tweet anything about your favorite team because you're gonna find something in the app you like, whether it's the live shows, tracking where the money is. The line movement alone is really valuable, especially when you're betting NFL and the key numbers. Like, I don't know, say if you wanted to get Eagles minus 2.5 and missed it, and then got 3.5, and then they won in overtime because they don't, and then they don't cover because they don't kick the fucking field goal. That the extra point, that's an example of how to get the best value using the Action Network app. You can also find all of our live shows at youtube.com/the Action Network. That's youtube.com/the Action Network. Let's do this thing as always. We're going to start with best bets for Monday. Jim Turvey, what's your best bet for the Monday slate?
I have Sixers minus 4.5, and I'm going to talk through Denny Advia's points prop.
Okay, in a truly disgusting game, by the way, for the Wizards versus the Pistons. I'm very excited to talk about that game. Joe Delara, what's your best bet for Monday?
I'm on DeAnthony Melton over 13.5 points against the Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay, I have 3. 2 of them are on the Lakers game. I have Lakers +5. I have Lakers Sixers over 231.5. And I also have the New Orleans Pelicans -4 versus the Utah Jazz. Where to start? Well, we're head-to-head here between Jim and I, so let's go ahead and get into that first. Jim, you like the Philadelphia 76ers here at home. Why are you backing Joel Embiid and the Sixers versus the Lakers?
Yeah, so the main point for me is just, I think this line is just too short, and I think it would be really fun to go back and forth with you on that. But I also will say Embiid really hasn't had much of a problem with AD in his career. Last 3 games, which is basically all that they've faced off in the last 2+ seasons now, he's averaging 39-5, basically on over 50% from the floor. He's plus 49 in the 119 minutes of those 3 games he's played. All 3 have been Sixers wins. He really hasn't had much of an issue, and I really just think the Sixers team is a lot better than this Lakers team right now. I have this number around Sixers minus 7.5. If you look at adjusted net rating, Sixers, they're the second best team in the league right now. Now they haven't looked quite as good in the last 2 weeks. Lakers have looked a little bit better in the last 2 weeks, but for the season as a whole, the Lakers, they may have that 10-7 record, but there's not really a nice win on that. I kind of want to go through this with you because I saw your tweet about how high you are on the Lakers. I don't see a good win on there. I think this Lakers team's a little overrated at 10-7. I have them at about a league average team right now, whereas the Sixers team, I'm a much bigger believer in. So yeah, tell me why you think the Lakers are semi-real here.
Okay, so a lot of this is like I tweeted about them based off of power ratings, right? Which is just like where my numbers spitting out. Now, my numbers do account for strength of schedule, It just takes basically a base adjustment driven off of dunks and threes because I will pretty much find any excuse to use that site's data and then adjust for that slightly. So I will start this by saying your cap is sound. Okay. Your cap is sound here in that basically the Lakers numbers are okay because they've played a bunch of shit. And anytime that they've played anybody good, they've been pretty much trash, with the exception of Saturday night's win versus Cleveland. Like that was legitimately their best win of the season versus a Cavs team that's only 500 on the season right now and can't get their shit together. And
Garland missed the second half.
And Garland missed the second half, right? So from that perspective, yes, I think one of the reasons I like this is tied in with the over, which is the Philadelphia 76ers are 23rd in defense, non-garbage time the last 2 weeks. The defense has fallen off a cliff. If they're going to be this offense-only team, I think honestly they're like, it's not necessarily that I think that the Lakers have more firepower, but I do think that that leans a little bit to Lakers on the spread. It's funny because you're like, I don't think this is enough points, and you've got a 7.5, and I think it's too many points because I've got this like Sixers -1 at most, right? And this is mostly, if we're really going to talk about this, it's basically you've got it projected 7, I've got it projected 1, and so I'm on the Lakers and you're on the Sixers, and then they'll win by like 6, and I will be like, fine. But it's fine. I'll also say this, that like I think one of the components here is largely that when I've watched the Sixers, I've been kind of like, like their momentum. And I think a lot of this too is they had such a burst out of the gate and the vibes were really good and they were really awesome. And Batum had like a plus 25 net rating for a while. And like, we're starting to see a little bit of a slide. Now, on the flip side of this, I will say another thing that makes me not necessarily thrilled to be on this side against you is the injury report. Because the Lakers, I can't believe I'm about to say this, the Lakers are going to miss Cam Reddish. They're really going to, like, Cam Reddish is questionable in this one. LeBron's also questionable, but I think he probably plays. They're going to miss Cam in this one. He's actually played really well for them. But Max Christie's been in the rotation. That's given them a defensive boost. If you ask me which is the better defensive team between these two squads, I'm actually going to tell you that it's the Lakers. And I think I don't think that that's crazy. Now, again, another reason to kind of like go your direction is how do you attack the Sixers? Well, you put them in pick and roll and you hurt the fact that Embiid's going to drop. The Lakers don't have necessarily guards to do that. Do you want D'Angelo Russell shooting that much? Probably not, but I think this is probably maybe a better spot for Austin Reeves. I like some of the staggered lineups in particular. Darvin Ham switched up things and now has LeBron running with Austin Reeves in that second unit, as it should be, because if you put Anthony Davis and ask him to hold up a lineup, he collapses like a piece of toilet paper trying to hold up a house. Like, it's not good. So if you have LeBron and Reeves holding it up, I think that that's a lot better. That said, I'll let you respond to any of those points, but in general, like, I think there's like two sides of this.
I think you're right. I think it is kind of a pivot game for me for the Lakers and how I view them. Because they have had this recent success. A lot of it has been at home. A lot of it has been against lesser opponents, but there have been structural changes, like you say, especially, those changes to when Reeves is getting his minutes. I do think there could be something there. To me, this is like, I want to see it before I bet it kind of deal. And I even adjusted this Sixers number for me a little bit based on the last 2 weeks, which way each team is trending. So I'll stick with my side. It does, you never want to be hear another prognosticator out there on the other side of things. So, maybe take it down like a tiny bit, but I still think I want to see the Lakers do it against a good opponent in Philly, who even though their defense has slipped, and I think they're a solid matchup for the Lakers, to be honest. Like you talked about briefly, like, maybe this is not the team that's going to shred the Sixers defense, and talking about how Embiid has done against Anthony Davis. So I definitely think this is kind of a choose your own adventure game for sure. And a little bit of a pivot point for how I'm going to see the Lakers and potentially the Sixers as well, based on which way these two teams are trending heading into the game.
I've also got Lakers Sixers over 231.5. I project this at 239, so I'm good with any number up to 240. The Sixers games this season, they're 10-6 to the over, which is a little bit surprising. Again, it kind of is reflective of, the early season defense might be kind of clouding who the identity of this team, which is that it's probably a little more giving maybe than we kind of initially thought. Like they have some defenders, but also bear in mind they did lose PJ Tucker, and PJ Tucker has looked a little washed with the Clippers, but that's still a plus defender that they gave up. Now Roko's played really well, but it's only limited minutes, and so that's why I think that there's probably a little bit of value on the over here. And I also think that either way, if Jim's right, then it's probably that the Sixers handle the Lakers and are able to put up a pretty big number on them. And if the Lakers win, I think is that they're able to get some traction versus the Sixers defense. Maybe it turns into a slugfest, but I'm willing to bet it's not. I'll take the 231.5 on the over. Joe, you get the last bet on this game, and that's the Anthony Melton over 13.5 points. What's your cap on that one?
So ever since Kelly Oubre's been out, he's kind of seen an uptick in not only his usage, but really the way that he's being asked to score the basketball. And he's taking a lot more threes, which is a shot the Lakers have defended pretty well, but they've also allowed a lot of three-pointers so far. And they're allowing, it's the bottom 10 in terms of how many threes and the frequency that they're allowing. So that's a shot that we know that Melton can kind of get up. Also, the Lakers have kind of allowed shooting guards to have bigger games against them. They don't have the best perimeter defense or like point of attack defense out on the perimeter there. You know, like you're dealing with D'Angelo Russell, you're dealing with Austin Reeves. And Melton, he's hit this line in 6 of 8 games without Kelly Oubre. A lot of the games are like right around where we are here. But part of why I like this spot against the Lakers is the Lakers play at the 9th fastest pace in the league. So it's a little bit of a pace up spot for Philadelphia, a team that generally plays a bit slower. And he's getting enough 3-pointers up, and he's a good 3-point shooter. Over the past couple of games without Kelly Oubre, over these last 8 games, actually, he's shooting 46.8% from 3-point range. And he's seeing a 17.3% usage, which obviously it doesn't sound like the highest amount of usage, but given what his role is in the offense and given what the Lakers kind of allow, he's going to be a guy that they're not necessarily, I think, all that concerned about. They're going to be looking at Maxey. They're going to be looking at Embiid. And a guy like Melton can kind of get his shots up and, you know, maintain his contributions across the board.
Okay. I have nothing to give because your prop plays are pretty much beyond reproach at any point. I'm not gonna be able to say shit because your props have been ridiculous lately. So all right, so we're down through. That's the Lakers Sixers game. Real quickly on Pels -4. I've got this projected obviously higher. Pels lost to the Jazz outright in the last game, and it was a very much a step back for them. They were on a back-to-back coming off of a big win, but that's still like a game that they probably needed to get. Even without Zion, like they needed to win that game. I looked this up. So this is a duplex game. You play twice in a matter of in 3 days. If you're favored on the road and you lose outright, and then you're favored again on the road. So again, like you're out of place, you should have won, you dropped it, you're playing that same team in that building a couple days later. Surprisingly, 13-10 against the spread since 2020, since these games started being played. And more importantly, 12-6 if you're less than a 6-point favorite in those games. So I will take Pels -4 as my second best bet. Jim, let's talk about the most fun game on the board. Let's do it. Let's get into this game because I'm very excited for this one.
This game's going to be good.
I remarked to my group chat with Brandon Anderson and former Buckets contributor Raheem Palmer that I can't figure out. My numbers keep being like, yeah, no, the Wizards are okay. Like, they're not that bad. And I keep looking at the numbers being like, are you drunk? Like, how drunk are you? Because the Wizards are terrible. The Wizards in this game are 3.5-point dogs. I have them as favorites. I have them as 2-point favorites. I should absolutely be betting the Wizards. I 100% will not. I will not do it on principle. I will not do it in any regard. You, however, have a prop play, which I think is admirable. Tell me about Deni Avdija.
Yeah, so this is very dependent on Jordan Poole not playing. So he's listed as questionable. We'll see if by the time you hear this, hopefully there's a full report. If he does not play, I'm going to be looking at Deni Avdija's points up to 14.5, and if I dig even a little deeper, I might even have a little more room for it tomorrow. But he's scoring almost 9 points per 100 possessions more with Poole off the court this season. Again, it makes sense from a usage perspective. It makes sense from a perspective of anyone who saw that preseason huddle where he was clearly not pleased with not getting the ball from Jordan Poole. And so what I really like though is, so in the last game, Jordan Poole was not active, and odd man, his is a tricky name to say. I'm gonna call him Denny the rest of the time. Denny had 9 field goal attempts and 4 from 3, and that doesn't sound like much, and it wasn't, but that was because he only played 16 minutes. It was a blowout loss. They got run off the court. If he had played his full minutes load, he was tracking for just about season high attempts from the field and from 3. So these ones where a player is out, we get to see the impact of like the field goal attempt distribution, but it's a blowout, so the books don't get to see that full number. That second game back, I really like to target folks who theoretically should have a higher minutes load. I don't see the Pistons running the Wizards off the court. Matt, am your numbers. I also keep thinking I should bet the Wizards, and I actually, unfortunately, do keep betting them every now and then. And let me tell you, folks, it's not fun. They don't cover much. They get run off the court frequently. I will not be betting them, but I am going to look at Denny for this points prop. 14.5. Last game it was 13.5, so that, even theoretically a little bit of wiggle room there. But I even may take it 15.5 if I do a little more digging on the Pistons defensively side of it. Bet the Wizards despite wanting to.
I have to look this up real quick. I have to see this. So the Pistons, 2, 3, 4. What's the streak now for the Pistons?
Is it 34 out of 38? Maybe
they've lost 13 in a row. I wonder, the Pistons have lost 13 in a row and are favored by more than a possession. And I still can't bet against them because it's the fucking Wizards. I did bet. So when Poole got ruled out on Saturday night, I was like, yeah, I'll take a sprinkle on the Wizards because Poole's out. And that should actually be a plus for them. And they got completely just destroyed by the Hawks. Just ran off the court. That was the exact moment where I was like, there will not be a number at which I can bet the Washington Wizards for a little while. I don't care. Even this is such a good spot for them off a day's rest, coming off a loss. The Pistons are so bad and they can't score and the Wizards can. This is a great spot for the Wizards, and I just can't do it, Joe. I can't do it.
No, the Wizards are just absolutely terrible. The one thing that I will say, and I noticed this, and you guys can shirk me or shirk this advice if you want, but Kyle Kuzma was tracking for a triple double in that game against the Hawks, and if Jordan Poole doesn't play, it might be a fun little sprinkle out there. You probably have to build it, and you'll probably get the best odds, but as opposed to the pre-built triple double option. But you could throw the 10 boards, 10 assists in there, and it might be fun. Or if you water it down with some 8 and 8. But he was tracking. He had 7 boards and he had 8 assists against Atlanta. So something to keep an eye on.
The triple double king.
The Nuggets and Clippers play. LeBron faces Embiid, and on this podcast, we're talking about Denny Avdia, points props, ladders, and Kyle Kuzma triple double props. That's why you come to buckets. One more note for the Monday slate, by the way. Blazers Pacers total 241, and we've been cashing on Pacers overs because, well, it's an unstoppable force right now. I do project this under. Under no circumstances will I bet a Pacers under. If you were like, I want to bet the total on this game, I just immediately be like, you should bet the over. I only have it projected under by a point, but that's enough for me not to go ahead and bet the over on it. This is one where, especially with the Blazers on the back-to-back, I'm going to go ahead and stay away. I think there's a chance the Blazers offense died in the second half versus the Bucks versus a very bad defense. And that's a good example of these bad teams will just have these lulls, because there's kind of this idea of they don't play any defense and they just run up and down and take shots, and so they can just keep scoring. No, they're truly bad teams will also have lulls where they just don't score at all. And that's my concern here is if you want to play the Pacers team total over, don't mind that. But this is definitely not a spot for an over bet.
I was gonna say, I think I would like the Pacers in the first half. Their team total in the first half, a lot whenever that pops. I think that's probably a great spot. I was a little surprised. I was hoping that we were going to get not a 12.5 assist line for Tyrese Halliburton again after he had only 10 against the Pistons, but it's back there. So I'm probably gonna stay away. But that first half team total over is definitely a spot that I would look at.
Okay, it's time. The in-season tournament wraps on Tuesday. For lots of NBA fans, there's conversation ongoing about like what this means and what like is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? All these types of things when it comes to the in-season tournament. Like we've just had like a lot of conversation about it, and that's all well and good. What I will say, however, is that this is an absolutely awesome thing for bettors. This tournament has been great because the games are competitive. I've given the stats on underdogs in all these games, and that's continued to hold. Totals have stabilized and regulated, so nothing like I think honestly, I think a lot of it was that the defenses had trouble with the courts early on, and then they got used to them. That's kind of my read on that. Maybe it was also just noise. That's entirely possible too. But dogs have been done very well in the tournament, but more importantly, last day of the tournament, we have a bunch of spots to establish. And so that means that there's opportunities to bet not only who's going to win this thing, because you got to win 3 games in 5 days. That's it. You need a 3-game winning streak for whoever's going to win this thing, and the numbers are outrageous. And on top of that, we have in-season MVP in the market, and that thing is wild. We have some absolutely crazy numbers there. Here's where I will start. The Lakers and Pacers are locked. They're in. The Lakers are plus 460 to win. LeBron is plus 550 to win Finals MVP. AD is considerably longer than that. Pacers are in. Plus 950 to win the thing. There's a Tyrese number at plus 900, which means like in the market, there's one that says that the Pacers odds to win it are worse than Tyrese's odds to win MVP, which is like kind of shows you like how hilarious, and also probably how many people have started betting Tyrese after the Pacers locked it last week. That's probably where that comes from, as the handle on Tyrese has to be pretty significant relative to the rest of the tournament futures. Not significant on a grand scale, but more in line. Almost definitely in. The Suns are in with a Minnesota loss, or if they have tiebreaker advantage, and they have a plus 34 point differential. Booker is plus 900 at FanDuel, plus 2,000 at another book in the market. Kings are in with a win. Fox is is 13 to 1 MVP, and that may not be the longest number in the market. The Pelicans are in with a Houston loss to Dallas. The Bucks are in with a win. The Rockets are in with a win. That's right. The Houston Rockets are in with a win. The Warriors are in if they win and the Wolves lose. And then you got a bunch of teams that need point differential. Like there's just like a bunch of teams that need point differential, and we can talk about all those. There's a lot of ways to kind of go about this. Let's start here. Jim. The Suns are in with a Minnesota loss, but even if they lose, they still get a wild card spot because they're plus 34, and I can't see anybody outpacing them at plus 34 in the wild card groupings. Maybe it's possible, but I don't think so. So the Suns are in. If the Wolves lose to the Thunder, which by the way, like I have the Wolves as home dogs in that spot. That's what I project for that game. So like it seems very likely that there's at least a strong possibility that happens. Thunder have been the best team in the West over the last 2 weeks. That to me gives great value here. KD's been great, but the market is still doing this thing where it's like, well, KD's the best player, so KD's MVP. And I think that Booker has a much better potential to be like 30, like averages 28 and 9 assists and 4 rebounds in these tournament games. I'm going to bet Booker 20 to 1 as soon as we get off this podcast tonight.
Yeah, the 20 to 1 number, and you talked a little bit about how this is like this in-season tournament right now. The books, it seems like they don't fully know what to do right now, because if you shop this in-season tournament MVP, you can do really, really well and scoop up some numbers that really are off at different books and build yourself a portfolio that is incredibly plus value right now. And Booker at 20 to 1 is absolutely a really solid look, because I think at some books he's around 100, and Durant's been playing out of his mind this year. He has been playing really outstanding. So if you want to put those two around on par, I think that's probably fair. But to have Booker at like twice the length, when I'm with you, I really don't see a way in which the Suns don't grab that wild card spot. The Thunder are not the type of team to roll over and lose by 37 points in a game that they don't have motivation in the in-season tournament. But I think that one thing that we need to keep track of is these motivation spots. I think the alt lines are definitely something to look at, but at the same time, if it's a close game, it's two competitive teams with really stuff to play for the regular season. Like the Timberwolves and Thunder are pretty close to each other in the standings right now. It very well may come down to the end of season where like a tiebreaker between the two of them is going to be head to head, and this game is going to have mattered a lot for the Thunder in the grand scheme, even though it didn't matter in this in-season tournament. I think that's maybe a little bit less of a case for, we'll talk Celtics, Bulls, and Knicks, Hornets later on. There's a little bit less, on the line for those ones, but this Thunder team, I really don't see dropping by as a monster a number as will need to happen to bump the Sun. So at 20-1, yeah, I'm with you on thinking that Booker play has a lot of value right now.
Yeah.
Joe, your thoughts?
No, I love the Booker play. I think the Booker play makes a lot of sense. We already kind of know there's certainty around how good, Phoenix performed. And because of the way that New Orleans didn't literally try to get like one more bucket to break that tiebreaker, they're not even a real concern. Like they would be the team that's closest. They're 1 point off or whatever, 1.2 points off in the tiebreaker with the Suns. They can't catch them. There's no way to catch them. So we're really looking at a scenario where the other teams that could catch or that would be in a position to try to catch or would need to catch are like dramatically farther behind. I think the closest is what, like 23 points or so. So it's going to be a very tough scenario to kind of get there, to beat out the Suns.
Like one of the things I think that is really fascinating about this market is that effectively what we're kind of saying, like the market is also pricing these things as if like kind of like a playoff format, right? Where it's like, oh, well, if you're like a high seed, then your odds are shorter because you'll be at home for the quarterfinal, I guess. But
yeah,
my thing is, I'm like, this is 3 games, guys. Like this is 3 games. If the Hornets knock off the Knicks, which doesn't seem likely, but if the Hornets knock off the Knicks and the Heat win, the Heat are in. Like the Heat are in. Can the Heat be the best team? Can they win 3 games? Bet your ass they can win 3 games. Like this is the Miami Heat that constantly confound all expectations. They've also got not a great shot at point diff given a lot of factors. Like the Bucks having a plus 39, pretty good, pretty good for their chances of landing in there. But like to me, there's going to be opportunities. It just kind of depends on you. Like you do have to look at the board on Tuesday and try and come up with like how we evaluate what's going to occur. Jim, you mentioned the alt line. So you mentioned the point differential stuff, the motivational factors. The team that has the most to gain from absolutely crushing their opponent is the Boston Celtics, who are in a dicey spot to a degree. So they clinch if they win and the Nets win, and then Boston wins tiebreaker over Orlando and Boston, but they're going to have to outpace the Nets and the Magic in that tiebreaker scenario. So like that's a way that they get in. They can get in the wild card with, I'm not even going to do this. Like there's a number of ways that they can do it. Like there's a bunch of ways that they get in. I don't want to go through all of them because you're not going to be able to keep track of them if you're listening.
It's impossible. Yeah.
But our outcome here is like the end point of this is Celtics need to win by a lot in their game on Tuesday. Like I have them as 13-point favorites versus the Bulls. If you're going to absolutely house a team, Chicago's not a bad team to face. So I want Jim and then Joe. How do we bet this? What's the way to approach this? How do we go? Like that Celtics Bulls game has huge implications. How do you think you want to bet it?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to do this. And it's part of it is you may have to wait on this game's spread to come out, which we don't have at this very second. But if you shop around, you can find the Celtics at plus 1,000 to win the group. Now, as you said, not only did they have to win, they do need some help from the Nets, who have to win as well because the Celtics lost head-to-head to the Magic. So it won't just be point differential. But that doesn't mean that they won't be trying for that point differential because the wild card in the East is all sorts of crazy. So they have double motivation to just absolutely run the Bulls off the court. I think we have seen at times this Celtics team not run teams off the court as much, but I think this is the spot where, if if you have some blowouts and to really run some teams off the court, this is absolutely the time to do it. I don't think you're going to get even a parlay of Nets and Celtics by 23 plus to get to plus 1,000. So I'm fine taking that plus 1,000 right now. There's also some crazy numbers out there around. One of them has Celtics plus 1,400 to win it all, which seems very short considering they're plus 1,000 to win the group. You can shop that. But another book has plus 2,500. Another book has Celtics plus 3,400 to win the tournament right now. If they get through either by a wild card or by winning their group, they're going to be incredibly live. This could be an instant hedge out or just let it ride. Yeah. To be honest, I think I would just let it ride. So being able to grab the Celtics at 3,400 is absolutely insane to me to win the whole tournament. And again, just a sign, it to a degree makes sense. Plus 3,400 is, about 3% implied. Plus 1,400 is about 7% implied. There really isn't that big of a gap in implied, which is why maybe we're seeing that sort of it's like chaotic shopping ability. But for us, the better. The payout is so much bigger for an event that is going to happen very quickly. You're not tying your money up on the Celtics to win the title 7 months from now. This is going to play out very soon. You're going to get the money back. You won't get the money back if you lose, unfortunately. I just learned this about betting. But you will have untied your money sooner than later. So for me, that plus 3,400 is an amazing dart just for the next couple weeks here. For a team that's going to be remarkably live if they get through this and are able to run the Bulls out of the gym.
Yeah, I think it's like particularly funny given the fact that DeMar DeRozan just was so upset the other day that the Raptors were like trying to score at the end of the game, and he was like so mad. It's like, wait till you see the Boston Celtics, buddy. Like this is not gonna go well for you. So I'm with you on that, and I think that this is really the way that you need to tackle it. I do think that you might be able to get like a decent number on some of these combinations though, right? Like if we're looking at the Knicks, for example, because like I'm always going to talk about the Knicks, right? But like the Knicks obviously have to win by margin against the Charlotte Hornets. And it's like important that they do so anyway. In order for them to win the group, like right now, their odds to win the group are only 7-1. They're not going to get there without not only destroying the Hornets, but you need Miami to win by probably like 10, like honestly. So like, I think you start projecting like that and you say like, all right, well, like the Knicks, like, are they going to win by 30? Like probably not. Or could they win by 20? Yeah, that could definitely happen. Right. But then it's like, they're still not there on the Bucks. So like the Bucks would have to lose straight up, or like you can start doing some other stuff where it's like Knicks by 15, Heat by 15, and then that gets you into a scenario where like New York would win the grouping because they outpace Miami in point differential. So I think you can kind of get like a little funky with some of these. But I do think that what I've noticed, at least from a player prop perspective, right, is these guys that are traditionally in blowouts would come out. And like, I feel like I always get this in like my replies. It's like, are you worried about a blowout? Are you worried about a blowout? It's like, not in the in-season tournament. Like, I'm not worried about a blowout there because these guys are going to try to play, like they're going to try to score. And I think that that's particularly relevant in these games, especially. And like the games that you obviously are going to be looking at are like, the Bucks just want to win. So they're a little bit less concerned, right? But like Miami, it matters like a little bit in terms of what their point differential is, because if it's a 3-way tie. New York, it matters exponentially. The Nets, it matters, and then Boston, obviously. So like Boston, they would normally probably be able to blow the doors off of the Bulls, but maybe in this spot, it's a spot where you're saying like, I want to bet on Tatum points like over, and I want to take some alts because if this game's towards the end and like they need to really score, who's the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands? Probably Jason Tatum. And like, this is not like this is a team that he can definitely go to work against in the Chicago Bulls. So I'd be looking at some player props too, because if you think a team is going to win by like 20 or 30, like their superstars probably had to put up a bonkers numbers in order to do so. Like you're not going to win by 30 points if like Tatum doesn't score like 35 points, probably. Like it's unrealistic, I think. So I think that there's probably some opportunities to combine things in same game parlays as well with these like really extreme alternate outcomes to try to figure out how the game's going to project.
One other thing about the Knicks game, I think if you're looking at the Knicks, I think you really should go for the alt line and not the group winner, because the group winner, you have just a lot of things having to happen with, including the fact that if Miami does beat the Bucks and the Knicks are blowing out, but then you also have to watch out for the Heat to win by, like, if the Heat win by more than so you're bringing in so many factors that I really think if you're looking at the Knicks in this spot, go to the alt line, not the group winner, especially since it's shorter than the Celtics group winner. Like, to me, if you're looking at a group winner, do Celtics. If you're looking at an alt line, either Knicks or Celtics.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that's definitely the way to go.
I want to talk about Sacramento, who the Kings are in with a win. There's a 16-1 on Fox right now for Finals MVP, or for in-season tournament MVP. That to me feels like maybe even better value than Booker, because like I could see KD, like, KD averaged 35 in 3 games and the Suns won and KD won it, right? Booker's at least competing with another high level guy, and Sabonis is high level, don't get me wrong, but I don't have any, like, the way Fox has played. This is another thing that's really interesting is in the playoffs, it's such an entirely different sport and dynamic. We don't have the opportunity to basically be like, who's awesome right now? Like, who has the most momentum right now in the NBA? And the most momentum right now in the NBA are the Thunder, who somehow lost and got themselves eliminated. I'm very pissed off because this should absolutely have Shea, and I'm very pissed off at those tickets. But the Kings are one of the teams in the West that has like the most momentum, and Fox has been incredible. Fox is averaging over 30 points a game since he came back. Like, he's been lights out. I kind of feel like Finals MVP De'Aaron Fox needs to go in the same bucket with Devin Booker, Joe.
Yeah, I actually think that that's notable. And I think that you're getting like a touch of a discount right now because Fox missed a game, right? Like, he missed an in-season tournament game. So I think, and so did Devin Booker. But, you know, the Suns have played all of theirs now. So like the Suns won all 3 with Booker. And then, you know, if the Kings are in that same scenario and Fox wins all 3 with Fox, then like you're looking great too. So I think that Fox has been like exceptionally, like, he's been exceptional. And you know that he's like the clear-cut best player on the Kings. Like, he is their engine. And, you know, he dramatically impacts the offense. So I think that it's great. I kind of like these teams that are high offensive teams, especially for this type of style, because I think that it's like, if you're just going to go out there and shoot, like if your team has the capacity to go out there and put up like 130, like, and anybody on any given night, I think that you have a much better chance at not only winning the tournament, but I think that you also have better chances of like putting up these bigger numbers. And I think that it's going to be interesting because like if a team gets to the finals, like we've never had this before, is there a chance that like you could lose the finals and still win MVP? Because I think that I don't know. But I think that maybe in this construct, depending on who you're playing against, I don't think it's completely unreasonable that could be the scenario here.
Well, I think this is not the way I typically cap. I'll say this, but I'm a little nervous hearing you guys talk of Kings, because this Kings spot just feels like the most Kingsy spot. They play the Warriors, who own them. It's Draymond's first game back.
Yeah,
that dude loves nothing more than being a villain. He's already got history with the Kings. The NBA does sometimes do these things where if you zoom out and you're like, so say you bet some King stuff, you zoom out and like a day later you're like, wait, what am I doing? I'll find that sometimes with myself. I'll be so in the numbers, I'll make a bet, and then like a day later I'm like, oh man, like just from like a common sense thing, I can't, what was I doing? And I feel like going all in on the Kings right now is kind of that thing that I would bet it and it would like make perfect sense. I got a great number, great value, and I'd be like, wait, I'm now saying the Kings are going to beat the Warriors. And that happens sometimes, but it smells funky.
Okay, so I'm into this. I'm into this, and I agree with you because I only have this game. I have this game projected as like a pick'em, effectively. What do we think the number goes to if they make it in? That's the question.
Number for
Fox. If they make it into the in-season tournament, what does it drop to? I think they'll still
depend on
be like
10 to 1.
Like,
the best.
What'd you say?
I think maybe 10 to 1. It depends on where they land, and it depends on the bracket, honestly.
I think it's like 8 to 1 or 10 to 1, and I would still like it then. So like you've talked me into it.
I think that's the way to do it.
Wait. Like if they, we'll talk about like, because we're doing best bets on buckets on Tuesday night after the games, but for you to head, like, this is our chance to look ahead. If the Kings win, we still like Fox to win because that's like a great long
I'd
shot.
love it then. Yep.
That's the spot that I think you want to get it. Like there's the Celtics are the opposite, where if the Celtics make it in, Tatum's going right back to the top of the list.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that could actually impact the stuff with Fox though, right? Because if we think that there's a reasonable chance that Boston can make it in, right, into the final 8, then that I think inherently will drop the odds of everyone else in the MVP race, because like you have to respect that Boston is arguably the best team in the tournament then. So everybody else's MVP odds should come down. So like, I think that you're right. Like if you want to bet Tatum, you need to bet Tatum now, or you need to bet Boston now, like however you want to do it. But if you want to bet somebody else that's not confirmed in, like you probably need to, it probably does make a little sense to wait a little bit and just see how the bracket number 1 shapes out. And then number 2, if Boston gets in. And I don't, to be honest, like the way that it's looking right now, Boston shouldn't get in. So I think that that's kind of cooked into the odds right now that Boston wouldn't make it. But if Boston does make it, I think that the odds should change probably dramatically, because Tatum probably has to be at least like the second favorite in this scenario. Like, I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for him to be lower than that, in this type of spot.
There's 2 teams that are probably going to get in, and I don't want bets on either one of them for very different reasons. The Bucks are going to get in. They win, they're in, and I think if they like, there's a scenario where they get in anyway, and their point differential is ridiculous. They're very likely to get in. I don't trust them. They came back versus Portland. Like the concern here I have is like, are the Bucks going to win the in-season tournament and not look good in a single game? Like, are they just going to look unimpressive in every single game and just be like, yep, and the Bucks won it, and they didn't look impressive, and the defense is bad? I feel like they're vulnerable. They're the shortest odds, so it's not quote unquote fun to bet them. I'm also not like I don't. If this was Budenholzer, I genuinely would be like, oh yeah, like I'm getting a bet in on the Bucks now. Like I would bet the Bucks before the tournament, but it's not, and that coaching drop off is huge. The Rockets are the other end of this, where I like the coaching, I like their situation, I like how they're playing. I just don't think that Houston's going to be able to, like, if it's Houston going to Sacramento, if it's Houston going to LA in particular, I'm not going to like that matchup. If they're facing off in Vegas and it's Houston versus LA, I'm not going to like them in that matchup. Like, I would like to already have a position on the Kings versus the Lakers in Vegas in the semis. I don't want necessarily to have Houston, and it's not about Houston not being good. Like, they're playing really well right now, and they're tough, and they're probably like, they have a really good shot to make this. They got to win on the road versus the Mavericks, which is tough, but I don't see any way to kind of bet either one of those teams, Jim.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. In fact, I think part of what I like, part of the reason why I'm finding so many bets I like in this in-season tournament right now is because I don't like some of the teams at the top. Not that the Rockets are at the top. I'm kind of with you on being able to write off the Rockets. I don't think they're going to go into Dallas and win, to be honest. And I think they'll be on their merry way. But I think the Bucks are a team that I'm very much not looking at. I know Giannis has been playing like really well of late. He really has been. And the Bucks are playing a little bit better of late. Their offense is finally starting to click a little bit, but they're, especially at the number that they're at right now, I'm really not looking at them. And this is one that, harking back to the start of the episode, it won't surprise folks, but might surprise you a little bit. I'm also not super high on this Lakers team as like a, semi favorite in this. It makes sense right now. They are one of the few teams who are locked and loaded and through. But that may well be a team that, based on how the bracket shakes out, I'm going to be looking to fade them as well. So I think the teams that are listed favorites is kind of what's making me so intrigued by this market, because I don't necessarily have them as the favorites in my book.
Joe, you got thoughts on either one of those teams?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that what Jim was kind of saying makes a lot of sense, right? Like in terms of saying like there's teams that I don't like. And I think that the reason the Bucks are probably kind of graded the way they are is there's like a level of certainty that they get through, which is something we talked about. But if you look at the other teams that are getting through in the East, like Indiana is like a relative, like we are high on Indiana. I don't think like average NBA viewers are like as high on Indiana as we are on Indiana. Same with Orlando, literally the same boat. And then it's like well, then it's who else? Like it's the Knicks.
Hmm.
Then like it's like like and it's like I love the Knicks, but it's like you look at those three teams and you're like, well, one of these teams has Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like they're probably going to get through. So I think that is kind of where you're at there. With the West, I think that some of the points that you brought up about like not wanting a Houston ticket or like not wanting this ticket make a lot of sense. But the teams in the West to me are more like dynamic in terms of like what I expect from them. Like the teams that are sitting there right now, currently, you're looking at the Lakers, the Kings, the Pelicans, and the Suns. Like if it stayed as is right now, those are all teams that you looked at preseason. You're like, even the average like NBA viewer is probably like, they're probably going to be in the playoffs. Like they were in the playoffs last year. They're like around the playoffs. They got like the Pelicans, they have Zion, they have Brandon Ingram. They're a popular team. The expectations were there. I think that like the west part of the bracket is very interesting, but I think that there's going to be a lot more value on the east part of the bracket just based on the fact that like if we don't buy Milwaukee, then it's like these numbers on these other teams like that we're kind of high on that are like uprisers or so to speak. I think that the value to win the tournament overall is going to be much more significant.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Pels here, because Jim's also got a note on Zion, who's 2000. I actually found a 2200 in the market. I've got a preseason 4500 on Zion for in-season tournament MVP, which makes me not want to bet any more on them. However, Pels are in with the Houston loss. So if the Rockets lose to the Mavericks, which if you take like a big picture step back and you go, the Mavericks are at home in preseason, who would you expect to win that game? You would say Dallas. Now, Dallas has a hard time with beating anything with a pulse. It's just a very difficult spot for them. They don't do well in those spots. And the Rockets definitely have a pulse. So a little bit of concern there. However, let's say this plays to preseason chalk and the Rockets win. Now all of a sudden the Pelicans are in, and they're another team, Jim, that I think absolutely, like to me, like the Kings or the Suns or these teams that can get like the Pacers, I think are a good comparison here too. These teams that are just like, can you look awesome for 3 games in a heightened environment? And the answer is like, absolutely. Like the Pelicans, they're inconsistent, but their fastball still looks really good. And they got GTA back and they're getting healthier and Zion is looking better and Ingram is playing really well right now. Pelicans, I think, is an interesting one to look at for in-season tournament as well. The question I have for you is, is this kind of like the Kings where it's like, let's wait to see if the Rockets actually lose to Dallas? Do you want to get your money in now on Zion or not?
I am more comfortable in this spot getting my money in a little bit early because I do think there is the possibility that this number shrinks with the events as they play out. Zion has quietly been, and there's also the potential for, the more days that go by, the more this gets talked about, the bracket gets released. We suddenly get, a decent path for the Pelicans and whatnot. And people start to look, and Zion, he is playing better and better in recent games. He's on his, no back-to-backs, but in his last 3 games he's played, he's up at 28, 5 and 5. Maybe the rebounds aren't quite what we're used to seeing from him, but those points are up relatively notably from the season as a whole. The Pelicans, as you mentioned, are really starting to get folks back. They're starting to integrate people in. They're looking good. They've been one of the better teams. The market's like trailing them at least a little bit, it seems like, in the last 2 weeks by spread differential. So I think I'm fine going for a little nibble on Zion. But I'll say this, if you don't already have it, I think most of the action folks, and if you've been listening to this podcast, you probably thought it was a really good bet at the beginning of the season. I wouldn't double down. I definitely don't think you need to double down at this point, especially if you have something in the 40, 35, something like that range. Let that sit. If you don't have any Zion stock, I'm fine at this moment adding plus 2,000, plus 2,200 like you found out there, in part because I don't think this Rockets team is going to go into Dallas to win. So I'm and obviously that's baked in. I'm not saying it can't happen. I don't see the likelihood being high enough that I'm worried to not put this Zion bet in.
I have on power ratings, I've got Mavs as home dogs right now. So wow. I may have to bet Houston to win the in-season tournament as like no, I can't even do that. I may just have to bet Houston outright in that game. As in like, well, if I lose, I've still got Zion 42-1 to win in-season tournament MVP if they can win 3 more games.
That's
what
not
could
crazy.
Possibly go wrong? I will ask the Knicks fans here. If the Knicks do somehow make it in, who do you want for in-season tournament MVP?
Oh, it's Brunson. It's Brunson. Everybody knows that Randall doesn't hustle. So like it's Brunson. Like there's just no way around it.
Mitchell Robinson?
I was actually
Mr. Robinson's interesting, but he won't put up enough stats.
I was looking at Brunson before the pod because I thought that would be a fun one, because I do think he's one of those guys who I struggle to see a way in which the Knicks win 3 straight games without Brunson being really strong in those 3 games. But they're priced about, like, the books are thinking the same thing. So I like Brunson. If you love the Knicks, if you can get a slightly longer number for Brunson, I don't hate it, but I don't really love the Knicks at their number. I think it's about the right spot. So especially with all that has to go on, that's maybe a wait, because Brunson, if they get through, I don't think Brunson's number is going to be ridiculously short.
No,
you might still be able to get, plus 1,600. So I think that's another guy. If you like him, let him get through. Let's actually see it happen, and then we can bet it on the other side.
Yeah, and I think that some of those guys too, like, to be honest, like a guy like Brunson, if you're gonna get like a 16-1, I would rather just like the games he's gonna play. Like, he's gonna play against the Bucks and the Pacers and and the Magic, right? Like, those are the 3 teams presumably. Like, he is going to put up monster numbers because they can't defend guards. Like, the Magic can, but like the Pacers and the Bucks can't. So like, you could just bet an alt line and then just roll it over again and do it again. Like, that's what you could do if you want to back Brunson. I think you might get better value even that way.
All right. If you've been completely confused by this entire segment, we don't blame you. You can hit us up on Twitter at HB Basketball, at Joe Delera, and at Turby Bets on Twitter. And we will try and answer all your questions because we're still trying to figure it out ourselves. But those are our plays. Booker, Finals MVP. Wait on Fox. If the Kings win, then go with it. Celtics and Knicks alt lines on Tuesday. Maybe a little bit on Zion. Kind of plays.
And I kind of like Celtics to win it all plus 30.
Celtics. Yeah, I'm going to bet Celtics tournament winner too, because I like that spot as well.
That number's crazy.
All right, it's going to do it. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, as well as our video team, putting this up on YouTube, youtube.com/The Action Network. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. We'll do best bets for the Tuesday tournament slate with the usual cast of characters. Thanks for joining us. Until then, let's get buckets.